Welcome, everybody. We're just waiting for everyone to connect, and we'll get started in a few minutes. We're just waiting for some more people to join, and we'll get started in a few minutes. Okay, it's now 11:02. I see we have a number of people that have joined us, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is a presentation from the Municipal Engineers Association that's brought to you by the Climate Change Committee of the Municipal Engineers Group. My name is Lisa Babel, and I'm one of the committee members on the Climate Change Committee, so welcome this morning. Just a few housekeeping notes before I introduce our speakers. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the MEA website. In addition, the slides from today's presentation will also be posted on MEA's website. And at the end of this presentation, you should get a message that will be a direct link to MEA's website where this information will be. We are going to be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So if you do have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to post those in the Q&A section, preferably the Q&A as opposed to the chat, so we can keep them all together in one spot. If there's anything there, if there's a lot of questions in one particular area, we may stop and address them then, but we will try to address most of the questions at the end. So good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome our two speakers today. We have Greg Zilberbrandt and Kyle Vanderlinden. So since 2013, Greg Zilberbrandt has been involved in the development and delivery of the sustainability courses, both at the undergraduate and graduate levels. Greg is currently the program lead for the Circular Economy and Climate Change program from McMaster University's Certificate of Completion program and is an adjunct professor with the W. Booth School of Engineering Practice and Technology. Greg spent over 10 years in various technical, managerial, and strategic corporate roles before starting his own consulting firm. Since then, he has worked with clients in energy, waste, and primary manufacturing, focused on creating value through effective sustainable strategies and environmental management and stakeholder engagement. He's also the executive director of Beyond 21 Academy, an educational not-for-profit organization, and the chair of the Hamilton Niagara section of the Canadian Society for Civil Engineering. We also have with us today Kyle Vanderlinden. Kyle is a senior advisor for the Credit Valley Conservation's Integrated Water Management Team. With his 17 years of experience in engineered green infrastructure, Kyle provides facilitation, training, and guidance to municipalities on critical processes for GI design, construction, inspection, acceptance, operation, and maintenance. Kyle is also the lead instructor for STEP's GI training program and an instructor for the CSCE McMaster Sustainable Infrastructure Certificate in Low Impact Development and Climate Resistance. So welcome, and I'm going to turn this over to Kyle and Greg to start the presentation.
Thanks for that introduction there, Lisa. And yeah, I really appreciate having the opportunity to present with Greg to everyone here. And yeah, we just want to give an overview of some of the resources that are available to your members, and training and tools. And yeah, so I'll turn it over to Greg, and he'll begin the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Kyle, and thanks, Lisa, for the introduction. So to Kyle's point, we're gonna give you an overview, a little bit of the background of what we're doing at McMaster and some of the continuing education or professional development, I should say, opportunities that are available to you through the certificates of completion programs. And then I'm going to hand over to Kyle because it does really fit in well with what we're doing with the Sustainable Technology Evaluation partner program that CBC, TRCA, and Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority are involved with. So Kyle, because you're driving the slides for me, so I appreciate that, Kyle. Can go to the next slide. So a little bit of background. So the Certificates of Completion program is sort of born out of this idea of, what is it that the professional development needs are that are really focused, I would say, on the engineering side, but not strictly on the engineering side, but really in a technical environment. So I don't want it to be perceived that, we are the School of Engineering Practice and Technology, but it's really engineering practice. So it's how do we implement the concepts of engineering, not specifically geared towards engineers per se, but technical staff, design staff, operational staff, maintenance staff, folks that are really involved in looking after engineering works. Or features of engineering works. So this collaboration with the W. Booth School of Engineering and as Lisa mentioned, my role at Beyond 21 Academy as well. And one of the reasons I want to point that out is I'll share later with you a link to these courses and the registration that goes through the Beyond 21 Academy portal. So I just wanted to highlight that for you when you do look into these specific offerings. So we started about 5 years ago offering, really looking at the broader approach of professional development in this space. Circular economy and carbon mitigation were really sort of the launching points for this program, that along with leading transition. All of these courses, and I'll come back to this in a moment, but all these courses were intended to be, and still are, 2.5 days, with the exception that I'll mention with the low impact development and climate resilience course, and the resources that Kyle's going to speak to. So the intention is 2.5 days of training for professionals to really get an understanding of these broader topics on circular economy, carbon mitigation, and leading transition. I won't delve too much into those. There's a lot of information on the website on those specific areas for you to investigate, and I'll share that with you. The one that I will just highlight a little bit, because I think it might be relevant to this group, aside from sustainable structure, is the carbon sequestration training program. We actually just ran that last week, and what that looks at is carbon sequestration and nature-based solutions. So this is really about natural asset management as it relates to carbon. So around forestry plans, carbon sequestration, and organizations, or whether public or private, looking at ways to manage their carbon budget, in addition to the mitigating actions they're taking. And I know that we have interest from conservation authorities and other public sectors that are looking at how they manage those resources from a carbon sequestration standpoint, and an offset as a balance to their entire carbon budget, whether that be a municipality or a region or broader sort of jurisdictional opportunities. So I'll leave that there because I think that's an interesting one that for this group to also think about. Sustainable infrastructure is the one that we're going to talk about in a bit more detail, and I'll highlight how those two offerings, because there are two offerings, and I'll highlight those in a little bit more detail. Before I do that, though, I want to just Kyle, if you would kindly go to the next slide. So I wanted to highlight how we approach the training within this program in general. And we're really looking at understanding the foundational knowledge. So we always start with the foundational knowledge. But one of our goals is really to get to an area where we have tools and application. We're really wanting to gear professionals to be able to take that foundational knowledge and apply it in their work. So we're happy and proud to work with organizations like STEP that are knowledge organizations, but also have developed tools and resources that professionals can then use in their work. So our intention is really to help them understand the problems and the foundational knowledge, and then move everybody through these courses into the tools and understanding the tools, and then of course the application of those tools in a meaningful way in their work. So this is the way that we approach all of our courses, the way we design all of our courses, really in sort of burst session environment, 60 to 90 minutes on each topic, and really getting into as quickly as possible, having the enough foundational knowledge to be able to apply that, so they can take that away, understand those tools and the application within their work. Next slide, please, Clyde. So I wanted to highlight the two courses that we have within the Sustainable Infrastructure program. So there is, and each one is an individual certificate of completion. It's a micro credential, officially called a non-academic micro credential, that is issued upon completion. This one, I think you heard a little bit about through your group, maybe, I believe it was late last year, which is the Envision training that's part of the Design and Engineering certificate of completion. So I've highlighted some of the key learnings, the key modules that are there, just to highlight, it's 20 hours of training, 3 consecutive days. And this one is done online. Both of the sustainable infrastructure courses are online. So it is very accessible from wherever you are. This one has a dual credential. So it's a McMaster credential, as well as a Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure, Envision ENDSP credential that comes with that is managed separately by Envision Canada and the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure. So we've embedded the tool into the course essentially with this specific certificate. So a part of the course is the tool, and then the bulk of the course still remains sustainable infrastructure as a whole and the overall learnings, but then how do we tap in and utilize that tool and the application of that tool. So back to that point of using our working with partners that are developing tools and resources that are able to be broadly applied. And of course, the Canadian Society for Civil Engineering is also involved in the development of these programs over the last couple of years. Next slide, please, Kyle. So this is the one that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper today, and Kyle will highlight some of the different aspects of it, but the learnings as well that really apply from the specific attributes of this course. This is the one that we work with closely on STEP, delivered by STEP instructors. It's 8 courses, 1 day each. So there are actually 10 courses available altogether. There are 4 required courses and 4 electives. They are 1 day of online training each. You complete the required courses and the 4 of the 6 electives. And one of the things that Kyle will actually come back to is a table that was developed by STEP staff last year to highlight which of the courses would be a good path for learners that are looking at, for example, the CLI ECA, and which courses would fit best in order to out of the electives that are available. So this is an opportunity for those who are really delving in deeper into engineered green infrastructure, looking at it from the foundational knowledge, the tools, and really and of course, there's the value of doing that through a formal educational environment. So just to highlight some of the things that are happening at McMaster. So I'm going to hand it over to Kyle to really get into some of the detail.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so I think as Greg highlighted, this is a course, but really what we do is we try to take all of our lessons learned from stuff that we've gained from the field with helping other municipal partners and implementing our own kind of LID green infrastructure projects in the ground, and we try to pull that into the courses that the participants take. And so we try to be as applied as possible based on the knowledge that we're sharing. So on that note, just so everybody has the same background, Greg's mentioned STEP, and STEP is the acronym for Sustainable Technologies Evaluation Program. So it's a collaboration. STEP has energy and STEP has water. And so Credit Valley and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority and TRCA, Toronto Region Conservation Authority, are partners in STEP Water. And we have 4 main focuses, which is low impact development, erosion and sediment control, road salt management, and natural features restoration. And so we were all headed in the same direction, like doing these types of projects. So we thought, why not centralize our resources, centralize our decision-making tools, our guidance, etc., in one platform, and that's essentially the STEP Water platform. And some of you guys may be familiar with that. And we have the Wiki LID Planning and Design Guide, which is essentially all of our guidance now that we're trying to centralize in one spot. So we hope it to be kind of a one-stop shop for engineered green infrastructure. That being said, yeah, I wanted to kind of turn the direction a little bit and speak to some of the challenges that our municipal partners have been facing, and how STEP is providing a supporting role. And so we're kind of looking at in the aspects of, 2 regulations, the CLI ECA and the asset management planning regulation that most municipalities have to, or I think every municipality now in Ontario is working on to a certain extent. So there's a number of challenges that our municipal partners are facing, and I know municipalities across Ontario are facing, and it's aging infrastructure. It's coupled with extreme weather and climate change that often leads to flash flooding, particularly in older areas, where infrastructure is not necessarily sufficient, or just the amount of impervious surface just really creates challenges for to manage that stormwater that is being produced. On top of that, we have ballooning cost. Everybody's probably experienced that in the last 2 years. Is just costs are just getting higher and higher, and it's really putting a crunch on municipal budgets and what we can do, and that stands true for even our for Credit Valley Conservation. The other challenge that municipalities are facing is labor shortages as well. Our particular team has lost 3 staff over the last 3 months, so there's lots of competition. It's definitely a job seekers market right now, and so that also aids to challenges. And then at the same time, you're having to meet tighter provincial regulations as it pertains to stormwater management. So one of the outcomes of the CLI ECA is meeting that 90th percentile runoff target within the road right of way for linear infrastructure. And so ultimately that leads municipalities down a path to implementing more source and conveyance controls. Could be engineered green infrastructure, for example. So the picture that we have on the right side here is a retaining wall. It was built to reduce and mitigate erosion that was occurring along the bridge bank, but it's also infiltrating water through. So it's a cold water stream. And so they had to take that into consideration from runoff coming from the roadway. The other challenge is that as municipalities grow, they have expanding swim infrastructure assets. And as municipalities invest in kind of inventorying and assessing the condition of their stormwater assets, they're often finding out that they have more assets than what they originally thought they had. And then with the direction of incorporating more kind of treatment train approaches, more source and conveyance controls, you'll have a growing swim infrastructure asset list. The other challenge that we're seeing is that there's LID, engineered green infrastructure, is still relatively new. It's And there's a number of different kind of working groups, whether it's planners or engineers or your construction or your operation and maintenance crews. The knowledge base is not consistent at this point, so there is gaps there. And so that's another challenge that municipalities are facing with these new types of projects that are being built or already have been built, is how do you now maintain these assets, these engineered green infrastructure assets. So one of the things that CVC and TRCA has been doing is supporting our regional partner, that's Peel Region, with the implementation, the monitoring, the asset management piece of their engineered green infrastructure. So Peel has 26 regional roads, and 15 of those roads, and it's a growing list, it's expanding list, has implemented LID since 2016. So they have approximately 15 project sites that we are now kind of assessing, doing assessments and trying to get a handle on their condition and potential maintenance or rehabilitation work. So overall, they have close to 67 hectares treated with engineered green infrastructure, and they have those they have a 9 So lots of work and lots of processes to be developed within the region of Peel that is requiring close work with them to develop these processes as to how do you inventory, how do you assess condition, and then figure out, does it actually work out. Some of the swim assets, sustainable swim assets or engineered green infrastructure that Region of Peel has implemented. So here's another example of a TerraWeb retaining wall, but which is also acting as an infiltration facility. They have permeable paver laybys, they have infiltration chambers, they have bioswales, top and bottom on the right-hand side, and they have these storm shields, which they've also implemented, which is a proprietary product. But what they're trying to do is enhance the pre-treatment forebay of some of their swim ponds. And so they wanted to trial a technology like this, where they wouldn't have to necessarily drain their swim pond to, and then they just clean it out on a more frequent basis with a sucker truck. That being said, with all of these assets, there's a number of different factors that are playing into it. There's a stormwater servicing master plan that they're overseeing. There's the CLIE region enterprise asset management strategy and plan. There's the stormwater management system asset management plan. And there's also the stormwater operations and maintenance manual. So this is all feeding into their green infrastructure stormwater asset program. So lots of different touch points, lots of different groups that a municipality has to meet with and figure out how these processes are going to be implemented. And I would say up to this point, most municipalities, they've implemented some form of LID over the last 10 years, but we don't have necessarily that asset management program in place. And so, it's not just Peel. There's a lot of municipalities who we've been chatting with that are all kind of going through this similar processes. How do we put together a program? How do we implement it? How do we train our staff? How do we secure the budget to do this maintenance work that may be needed or whatever else that is required? So some of the things that STEP has been supporting Peel with, and that's ourselves and TRCA in particular, is we help with review of feasibility studies, site plans, designs as it pertains to constructability, inspection and maintenance. For example, when you have a chamber system, how far does your meters? So if it only goes out 30 meters and your infiltration chamber is 90 meters long, you may need to put another Nioplast manhole to actually maintain that infrastructure and access it from the downstream end, not just the upstream end. The other thing that we've conducted is we've been doing inspection of their engineered green infrastructure within their road right of way. We've been identifying and identifying issues where the design doesn't actually align with how the system has been built. So we've provided also LID acceptance inspections prior to region appeal, assuming ownership, and given them recommendations for maintenance and rehabilitation needed. We're also this summer are going to be providing routine LID inspections and developing those processes so that in the long run, the processes are going to be developed, but they're going to be, vetted through Peel staff. Their staff are going to be trained on these processes, and then their staff will take over on this work. The other piece too is once we have a handle on the maintenance, the frequency of maintenance, potential rehabilitation that is needed, then we can start assigning life cycle costs to it as well. Some of you may be familiar with the LID lifecycle costing tool that STEP has produced, but it's really important. That's just an estimate, right? And with inflation being 20, 30, sometimes 40% in construction, that definitely throws, the accuracy of the costing tool off. So we're hoping to kind of ground truth some of this stuff and improve the sensitivity of that lifecycle costing tool. So here's some shots. So this is some of our colleagues. This is Phil James. He's my manager at CVC, and he's just providing some training of Mississauga Road. It's called Project 2, but we have the TerraWeb retaining wall. We have a double chamber inlet with a snout that acts as pre-treatment. And what we're trying to do is really give everybody in the group a good handle on how the water flows through the system, the different aspects of the assets, and then ask these kind of pertinent questions is can you actually maintain this? And that's something that is really critical, because now that some of these projects have been in operation for 5 or 10 years, and we're trying to identify, okay, does this actually work? Does the operation and maintenance crews, do they have the proper equipment? Do they have the proper training? Do they have, the staff capacity to actually maintain these assets into perpetuity? Here, we're just doing some sediment checks within the catch basin. So a good question is like, at what point do you suck out your CBs? Is it when it's 1/3 full? When it's at 1/2 full? Is it at the top of the invert to the outlet pipe? So just figuring out, what is the typical trigger point for cleaning? Because often the word that we get is, oh, these are on a 2 or maybe a 3-year cleaning cycle. Well, that's great, but if you have an underground infiltration chamber and you have lots of sediment before that 3-year period, that sediment is now getting into your infiltration chamber or into any other LID feature that may be subsurface, and it may be a lot harder to clean out. So your first kind of frontline attack or frontline defense is your catch basins that may be connected to your LID features that may require a greater frequency of cleaning. The bottom picture is a Peel property, and they have a number of green infrastructure assets within their properties as well. So it's a Peel owned property. And so we're also inventorying and doing condition assessments on those and creating checklists for their staff to use. So we have to ground truth those checklists and figure out if those checklists actually make sense and they're usable. And then how do you tie it into, their asset management software? So some lessons learned to date. I know I've kind of been talking about that already, but design briefs are really critical in assessing the condition and performance of GI assets. Sometimes we'll get a drawing of an existing asset that's come across our desk, but there's not always a design brief that accompanies that drawing set. So if you're asked to evaluate that asset in terms of condition or performance, for example, and you don't really have an understanding of the design criteria, that really can lead to challenges to say, yes, is it working or is it not working according to the design criteria? So keeping good track of not just the drawing set, but also any accompanying documents such as the design brief, and that can really help when coming to accept these practices before you take ownership from the contractor. I know I've kind of harped on this already, but GI assets must be accessible, maintainable, and ideally they don't require specialized equipment or expert training, but that's not always the case. But that is the ideal. So some of these assets can be challenging to access, and that just poses additional, I guess, challenges for our operation and maintenance teams. And so a big thing that we're trying to do right now is just feed that connection between the design and planning group, the capital group, and the operation and maintenance teams. And often they do chat and there's lots of interaction, but sometimes the operation and maintenance teams don't necessarily have a strong handle on what will be required of this green infrastructure. So that's something to pay attention to, and really important to, work with your operation and maintenance crews. If you're a part of the design group, and figure out, do they have the equipment? Do they have the staff capacity to maintain that infrastructure? Is it set up in a way where it's going to be easily accessible and easy to maintain? So if there's a pipe bend, like I got an email the other day saying, oh, our equipment can't get through 90-degree pipe bends. Okay, I totally understand. And it can't get through 45-degree pipe bends. Well, it poses more challenges. So, okay, so that really means that we have to design these things where it's like a straight shot. And at any type of pipe bend, there has to be some point of access, whether it's like a Nioplast manhole where that pipe bends, so that crews can get in and clean it going one way and clean it going the other way. That's really critical. And it adds costs to the project as well. So that needs to be accounted for. The other thing too is ideally, when you're building this infrastructure, you are building it and you're documenting it as you go along. So with inspection, in terms of photos or videos, it's really critical, because once you accept or you assume that practice from the contractor or from whoever it is, you own it and you're responsible for it. So if you don't have a good handle on how, necessarily the project was constructed, that can really, again, pose challenges for understanding how the system is going to work, but also pose potential operational challenges in the future. And it just becomes, could become an expensive fix. Okay, so the other piece too is really updating your contract language, ideally, with when you have these projects being built, so that the contractor is responsible for inspection and maintenance, cleanouts, scoping, etc., of the practice prior to, ideally at the end of major construction, but also it may need to get cleaned out again prior to acceptance. So I know that there's limited budget and there's limited money. So if we can build it into the cost of the construction of that LID feature, that might be the best way to go. Field changes. So there's nothing wrong with field changes. Often, the designs just don't line up once you're out there and you're building it. There's challenges that are encountered along the way, but it's really important to document it. And so one of the things that we realized is sometimes the as-built surveys, may not be done. 2, there may be multiple versions of as-built surveys. And so 3, you have to pull all that information together. So we received a copy of those as-built surveys. And what we found out was that the project managers also had kind of another version of the as-built survey, kind of based on their own notes. So it's just a matter of compiling that. But if we didn't meet with the project managers, we would never have known that, they also had changes that were identified based on that. So just building that into your process of construction is really critical. And We've seen that sometimes the contractor is responsible for the as-built surveys. So it's, have you enforced it so that it's actually being done, and do you have a good record of it as yourself, right? So again, these are all learning processes, and I think these are common challenges that a lot of municipalities are facing is tracking these assets along each phase of the project. So this is kind of another important component is, get it into your tracking system. So this is an example of what we're doing right now with Peel with their own properties, is going through their design drawings and pulling out the critical infrastructure in terms of stormwater and identifying those green infrastructure assets, and then getting it into an interface such as GIS or creating a map out of it, which then can be tied into their asset management software. So it's really important to, once you have your as-built, okay, how does it get into your asset management systems? And so that, everybody's aware that you have green infrastructure in this particular area. Because the last thing you want to do is have something get ripped out, which you might have paid a premium price on, because that information isn't properly tracked and it's not into your asset management system. So once we have those kind of assets identified, the next thing that we do is we figure out how does the water flow from one point to the next. So GF is the green roof. It then flows into these assets, which then get picked up to the weeping tile, which then goes out to manhole 2, which then goes into the infiltration gallery. And eventually, I know this is somewhat convoluted with this flow diagram, but eventually it gets out to the municipal system. But without having this, we would never know how the system works, and we wouldn't understand, okay, how, one asset may impact several others. So it's really important that we have a good understanding of how different assets impact, so that when maintenance is needed, you can assign a prioritization. So say the infiltration gallery fails or needs maintenance, that may have an impact of all these kind of upstream assets that are flowing into it. And it may impact the downstream assets as well. So it's really important to have a strong handle on that. So one thing too that is really critical is identifying those champions and figuring out who can be the kind of the link point or the hinge point to all the different groups. So we have, a great colleague over at Peel, or several great colleagues, but for the roads project that we're working on is Eleanor Gillen, and she's been really critical. She's been the kind of the green infrastructure champion within the ops and roads groups, and she's kind of been the hinge point linking all the different groups so that the information can get to the right people. So if you know who that person is, and maybe you're that person, that's a really critical role. So that kind of takes, I just wanted to give an overview of the type of work that we're doing out in the field with our municipal partners and what goes into the training that we're developing and that we deliver for the McMaster certificate. And again, it's intended to be practical. It's intended to be taking, lessons learned from the field that we're learning, say, from either the previous year or that current year, and trying to incorporate it into the different courses that are happening. So, we just identified these. So these are the 10 courses that Greg was talking about as part of that McMaster certificate. There's kind of 4 core courses, which is the intro to LID, the LID bioretention design, the LID construction course, and then, it's not bioretention, but it's the intro, LID construction, inspection and maintenance, and then emerging topics are those core courses. But you have 4 kind of electives that you can also select, and that can be the bioretention design, it can be the life cycle costing tool, the treatment train tool, or doing design analysis, and then also ESC and performance monitoring verification, and municipal stormwater financing and charges. So those are all the electives that you have, but you pick 4 of those. So in total 10, but you only have to take 8 courses. So on the picture on the right is just an example of that life cycle costing tool. Below that is the wiki website with all our guidance and training, and we pull these things into our courses so that you have a strong handle on these free available tools on how they can work and how they can support you with your projects. So that is the end of the presentation, but we're happy to take any questions that you may have, and really appreciate having us speak to your group.
So Kyle, I'll just note it's an error on my part. There's only 7 X's. The 8th X is on the emerging topics, which is the required course on the slide before. So my apologies for any confusion there.
Thank you, Greg and Kyle. That's great. Very informative. I learned something new. So that's very interesting. I don't see any questions that are posted. I'm wondering if anyone on the call has any questions they'd like. You can post that into the question and answer, and we can see if there's anything. I guess one question I have for you, Greg and Kyle, is if people are interested in these courses or on following up. I see you've got your email addresses there. Is there a website they can go to, or would you prefer that they send you emails to ask questions on how to attend these courses or sign up for these courses?
It's a great question, Lisa. So I actually posted the link to all of the courses, and I'll in a moment I'll post a separate link for those who are interested in the going straight to the application process that you'll see. So for these courses, one thing I should mention is I think probably an interest is the cost of the courses. I imagine that question was going to pop up sooner or later, so I'll just field it in advance. So I know that some folks have completed courses with us in the past, the sustainable infrastructure, and we did have a funding through a partner through the Canadian Society for Civil Engineering. So the course, unfortunately, we don't have that subsidy anymore, but there's still the courses are $750 for the entirety of the certificate, which means all 8 sessions are at that cost. So it's a one-time $750 for all 8 sessions. The other thing that I will mention is if you've completed STEP courses in the past, if they are equivalent length and learning objectives, and we work closely with STEP to identify those, then what we do is we provide course credit for up to 50% of the certificate if they are aligned with those learning objectives and meet the learning objectives that you would have achieved through the certificate program.
I see we do have one question here from Lauren. Who or what role in our municipalities do you think would benefit the most from doing these courses?
Yeah, I can speak to that, and I mean, definitely the groups that I kind of identified is, the capital group, the design group, the operation groups, project managers that may be responsible for implementing, whether it's road projects or building projects that are incorporating, stormwater management infrastructure. Those all play critical roles. We also have, I know this is the MEA, but often we have, participants from consulting groups are also participating, groups from NGOs. I mean, it's not, although it's technical, it's broad enough that, anybody from various backgrounds can kind of understand it and can learn something and gain something from it. So, as it is intended to be kind of applied in terms of the lessons that we're doing, but I think it's not at a point where it's gonna, hopefully it doesn't scare anybody away from it as well.
Yeah, and I think if I could just build off that, I think we've had everything from grad students in policy to architects, of course, lots of folks who are in the municipal engineering world, whether that be engineering works from the private or public sector as constructors, designers, engineers, or the asset owners.
Thanks. I don't see any other questions, but I do have one for you, Kyle. You mentioned a lot of CLI ECAs. That is a topic that I know is very much near and dear to my heart, since we are dealing with many of our aqua clients who are struggling through how to deal with those CLI ECAs. I'm wondering if you can speak about any potential resources specifically around developing operations and maintenance manuals for those CLI ECAs. That's been a real challenge with many small communities who really are going from nothing or more knowledge in people's heads and are now having to produce something on paper.
Yeah, so I think, and I know that's the thing with small municipalities, is like you may have one person in the engineer group that wears multiple hats, where they're not just wearing a stormwater hat, they're wearing a wastewater and a drinking water hat as well, potentially. So yeah, there are resources that definitely identify maintenance task and needs for different stormwater assets. Most definitely, that's what STEP is. Essentially, it's a resource hub. So we have an inspection and maintenance guide for swim ponds. We have actually an inspection and maintenance training for swim ponds as well, which is led by STEP staff, but also by a number of municipal staff that are experts in that. We have the LID inspection and maintenance guide, and which breaks down the typical tasks for various LID features. And then we have checklists within these guides that says, okay, what are the things that you need to inspect for each asset? And then to assign a cost to that, we have the LID lifecycle costing tool. So you can either use your own kind of tracking of expenses and try to build an estimate off of that. But yeah, it's really challenging for those smaller municipalities because it's a lot of work. And so, but there are a number of resources that they can kind of, can use from STEP. Like all of our stuff is, all our guidance, all of it is free. So we'll put the website into the chat, and people can access that. And if they have more questions, we don't limit it just to our immediate municipal partners that fall within our jurisdiction. We've done training all over Ontario. I've done it in Thunder Bay. I've done it in Kingston and Ottawa. We did training for the city of Halifax at the end of March. And so we're definitely open to sharing information, and it's really about learning from one another is really critical. So yeah, I'll put the links in, and then if there's any more specific questions on that, I'm happy to chat some more about it.
Excellent, thank you. I can see you getting a lot of interest. That is, as I said, a very hot topic with many of our smaller municipal clients who are really struggling with that aspect, especially on the stormwater side.
Yeah, it's everybody, to be honest. Even if they're big municipalities, they're struggling. So it's not limited to small ones. It's definitely everybody across the board is struggling with the CLI ECA. And I'm the chair of the WEO Stormwater Committee, and it's, we have a good cross section of municipalities within that group. And it's everybody's kind of like, how do we do these inspection and maintenance plans? How do we monitor these assets and ensure that we're doing it and meeting the kind of the minimum requirement from the province? So all of that is being kind of flushed out and hammered out. And I think there's going to be a lot of kind of trial and error over the next year or two, figuring all this stuff out.
Great. I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much, Kyle and Greg, for your time today. I think this has been very useful and beneficial for a lot of people, and I'm sure you'll get lots of follow-up questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending. If there are any other topics that you feel you would benefit from related to climate change, please reach out to the MEA Climate Change Committee. We are hoping to host a series of webinars throughout the course of the year like this to inform people and to provide information and resources as needed. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Lisa.